Thank you so much, and thank you so much for all of you being here today. Before we get started, I will do in kind and let the other panelists with myself introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and kick off with our questions, and then go from there. Awesome. So, Jose, I'll kick it over to you.
I was about to play let Susu go first. Do you want to? Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Abreu, and I work at Eastern Bank. I happen to have the honor to be part of the Equity Alliance for Business. And if you are sitting down, you may be having in front a brochure that has very summarized information about the program. But that's it. I'm a banker who happens to be very involved with the community and excited to be here because we're going to talk about how to debrief those comments and feedback that were shared in the few minutes that we had the previous panel. But thank you to be here.
All right.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. My name is Susu Wong. I own an online marketing agency called Tomo 360, just about half an hour away from here in the great city of Lowell. And I'm very active in the community. I'm also a co-founder of Women Accelerators, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women with their careers through coaching, leadership, and networking. And I also sit on the board of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce.
I do too.
Yeah, and he does it.
So now all of you sit on the board of the chamber. We'll go ahead and get started with our first question. And our first question is, why is inclusive entrepreneurship not just a moral imperative, but an economic one for our communities and our cities today?
Okay,
I'll kick it over to Susu first. We'll keep mixing it up.
I think inclusive entrepreneurism is not just a moral imperative, but it's really a growth strategy, right? When you have people from different races, different gender, and disability, immigrant status, right? And you do business, right? You're gonna hire your community, right? You're gonna work within your community, and you're gonna speak the voice of other people, right? That will be so much more vibrant than a homogeneous population. They're going to create jobs. I hire all my teams, and we work locally. And, I think the experience is just so much better because you have that experience working with other organizations, other communities, and it's just a good way to do business.
I support all what she said, especially being a person who had the blessing and the honor to having reside in 5 different countries and having worked at different industries with people from different backgrounds and doing that on my daily basis now with Eastern Bank. I truly say that there's value there in diversity. It's a growth strategy, 100%. I was yesterday sitting down with a group of bankers, community bankers in Concord, New Hampshire, and we were just talking about that. What is the future of banking? And banking has to be a partner, a connector with the community if you want to remain relevant for the banking industry. I will say it. And in general, for any business, any structure or city or state in the entire country needs to consider that as a way to embrace the different opinion and voices that are part of the community.
Absolutely, and I can't speak, as from the business side, from the banking side, because I can't, hand out capital and large loans and, et cetera. But, here at the LGBTQ statewide chamber, one of the things that we know and that we continue to do is figure out how do we become more equitable in inclusive entrepreneurship as well. An example of that and something that we actually launched this year is we have 4 small business programs that we do for entrepreneurs, really trying to take that creative idea, and then we have 4 different lines, what they really want to learn and scale their business in, and we run those. And historically, for the past 3 years that we've been running them, they have been solely in English. So we said, how do we continue to be more equitable? Our identities are intersectional. right? And be, you know, a part of multiple chambers, right? They may need different benefits from each of those chambers, but we said, how do we continue to lean into equity and entrepreneurship? And so what we did is we just launched one of those four, and we'll continue to build it out, completely and solely in Spanish. So the entire small business program is solely in Spanish, to create an opportunity for those entrepreneurs, those small business owners, to learn operations, banking, profit and loss statements, which we all makes most of our heads spin, right? Especially if you're a creative and starting a business. You're really great at your craft, but looking at profit and loss statements is like your worst nightmare. So how do we then create an opportunity for you to learn and engage in that material and get proficient, or at least effective enough to build a great relationship with Jose at a bank in a language in which you learn best and that you wish to learn? So the ways in which we lean into intersectionality of identities and entrepreneurship within our own organization, being a nonprofit who's able to impact about 1,500 businesses across the state every single year, is important to us, and work that we'll continue engaging in. And then on the corporate side, you know, that's on the small business side. You know, I was just talking to a different financial firm last week, and I'm asking all of our corporate partners this, right? In a time where anti-DEI legislation, executive orders, right, in the LGBTQ community, specifically in the work that I do, is being attacked on multiple fronts. Right? When I ask my corporate partners who are staying with us, and not all are, right? We know, and you've seen the news, and maybe you've seen my face on the news in the past few weeks, corporate partners are scaling back for a multitude of reasons in their partnerships and in their sponsorships in DEIB work. And it's really tough on those nonprofits to continue doing and scaling the work that they're doing. But you ask the ones who say this is who we are morally, and you ask them why. And you say, why does leaning into equity, diversity, belonging for your incumbent workers, but also your workforce of tomorrow? Because every business shouldn't just be looking at tomorrow. They should have that 5, 10, 15-year plan. What does that look like? Who's going to work for you? How are we training them? And then how do we then build the wraparound supports? Housing, healthcare, daycare, train, transportation, all of those opportunities, so we can build towns and cities in which everybody feels valued as a human, but then feels valued for the skill set that they bring into their work every single day, and has the opportunity to grow and scale their businesses and be able to support their family at the same time. That's what we want the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to be. I get very passionate about that, because I grew up in Texas, and that is not a place where I, advocate for people to go to live. I grew up there. I didn't know any different. I came up here and I was like, oh my God, you guys are awesome. Came to school and I was like, this is great. Just fell in love with New England, and I'll sit on so I would Jose and I have had this conversation as living in a multitude of areas that, I think sometimes our business owners and, we have a lot of systems that we have to fix, but I think that we take certain things for granted here, and we don't always lean in to step forward and step up when communities need it the most for each other. And right now, that resource building, ecosystem building, and asking for help, but also most importantly, asking open-ended questions to the people who need that support, and then zipping it and listening. Is one of the most important things that we can do on our side of the house right now when we're looking to really lean in and help other people survive right now. Not thrive, survive, and then hopefully get them to thriving as well. So we'll move on to the next question, because I'm a yapper. Sorry about it. Unless you wanted to say, oh, you were just scratching your chin. All right, on to question number 2. What responsibilities do larger businesses, anchor institutions, or local governments have in creating a more inclusive business ecosystem? What are your thoughts, Susu?
I'm going to start with corporations. So, I spent years going to portals and signing up as small business, women, minority, LGBT business, you name it, right? And it's like going to a black hole. Have you ever done that before, right? You go into a very big company and you're like, okay, all right, let's try to do business with them. And it's just not going anywhere. I remember going to a conference and we had to get at 7 in the morning to walk with all these businesses, right? And we're in West Coast time, so it's really like 4 in the morning for me, but I'm doing it, right? I did it for 3 years and nothing happened, right? And I think that the businesses, the large companies should like walk the talk, right? You don't want them to, treat you like a vendor, right? You want them to really appreciate what you bring to the table. We spend a lot of time trying to nurture the relationship. Does it work? Yes, I see my colleagues that have worked, and I really want the companies to really step up and really value small businesses because we bring a different perspective to the table, right? We work with a very large quasi organization a couple of years ago to bring affordable mortgage to 29 gateway communities. And they picked us because they say, we want to work with you because you understand culture and marketing. So we have like 6 different languages, really target all these different towns because every town from Attleboro to, Revere, they speak different languages, they have different cultures, and so we implement those marketing campaigns for them. So that worked, but it takes a lot of time, right, to nurture them and to prove that, you can do these things just like other large companies. And do you want me to go with the government or should I? Okay, I'll continue. All right, okay. Speaking of government, several years ago, the state of Massachusetts accept LGBT certified business. And for years, I've been a woman minority certified business. And, we weren't getting contracts. And we started working with the chamber. And they certify LGBT business, certified business. And so we were able to get into the PRF 70, which is a state contract, a statewide contract. It's very different from like being in the combis and you're a certified, right? And since that time, we're able to work with the government. And what the government can do is really open up, procurement, makes it easier for us to do business. Maybe don't spend 90 days to pay us because how can you afford 90 days, payment term, right? Things like that could really help us. But I think the state has done a great job in procurement. Not so much with LGBT because we're still a little lower, but you hope that, they will, focus on that. It's still relatively new. So I think some of these things the government can really charter and to help us to, just have more procurement, not just the large business, but small businesses like us. Oh, yes.
I support that as well. I will say, I can take it as an example what we are doing at Eastern Bank. The Equity Alliance for Business, it's a program that truly reflects on our commitment to the community. So, we understand that when businesses grow, so does community. And so with the Equity Alliance for Business, what we are doing is particularly supporting women-owned and people of color-owned businesses with access to capital, but also with access to those resources that were loudly claimed in the previous panel. It's a way there. We understand that sometimes cash flow is an issue. Those 90 days that the government will take or any other institution to sort of like pay you back, and you need to come up with the funding in the beginning. So we are trying to bridge that gap with the resources, but it's also a commitment with the other businesses to prepare themselves, because it's not it's not a one-way street. It's a two ways. And so as we are working towards making the processes and the application and the overall journey a more user-friendly, it will also require the beneficiary, meaning us, the business owners, to do our job, and that will be to prepare to use those programs with the technical assistance to truly understand what it means, like running the business, not just from a passion standpoint, but also from a business mindset. It is imperative to understand, and I know that's a cuckoo, understand the balance sheet. That's a picture. If you don't want to look at the numbers, it's a picture of your business. And understanding the profit and loss, we need to understand it's just like a basic ruling here. And I know it sounds like harsh, but it is reality. I will use the analogy here. So if you come to me, or if I come to you, you don't know me, and I ask you for money, will you lend me money? No, you need to get some guarantees, and that's what the financial industry is doing. And even with grants, that's the process. It's understanding what is your narrative. And where I'm going with this is owning that business plan. It's who you are, who you serve, how you're going to get to contact those customers. And so making those processes like connected, but hearing that from you as a business owner, your character, or that history that you have brought up to be the owner of that business, that experience that you have had, will be the ones that will back you up when you are presenting that business plan. But you need to own it, right? And so, yes, there's that sort of like a common ground or meet halfway point where we need to both put our part of the journey to make that work happen.
Awesome. Thank you. And Susu, I'm so glad that you talked about the SDO and the procurement benchmarks, because I'm sure all of you in the room read the entire report that just came out last week very diligently about the state and its benchmarks. And, Susu made a good point that, us being the LGBTQ benchmark, we're the kind of the newest designation. And, a reporter asked me last week, they were like, oh, the state didn't quite hit their marks. Would your suggestion be that maybe we kind of lower what those marks should be? And my answer across the board is no. And it's no, because how do we move the benchmark forward for all of these benchmarks and designations? If we're not hitting those, right, then those are active goals for the state to hopefully achieve next year. They increased, right? And I've been the executive director of the chamber. I started 2 weeks before the election. So thank you for laughing. No, you're right. Susu and the board, they hired me, and I think we had very different hopes and dreams. And now we're fighting, every single day for our businesses in our community to thrive. And, but working with these benchmarks, and, I'm telling my businesses, so if you have the opportunity to get registered or get that certification, any of them, veteran, women-owned, minority-owned, LGBTQ-owned, or a multitude of them, do it. I tell my businesses it's like a passport. Somebody invites you to a free trip to Ireland tomorrow, but you don't have a passport. Whoops, you just missed out, right? So it's kind of twofold. Get it. Because even if you don't think, right, that what you serve or what you do or what your line of business is going to directly relate to an opportunity at the state, you never know. Right? And there may be an opportunity where now you can throw your name in the hat and when we can help you fill out that paperwork and get access. And then on the flip side of that, I talked to the reporter, about how do we build a better education system? Because those who have been certified for much longer, or those businesses who have been around for much longer, or those who have lived in the system for much longer understand the process. It can be a very debilitating, complicated process where you say it's not worth it, I don't have the time, I don't have the capital, and what's the chances I'm going to get it anyway, right? And we can think that, and we often do, especially a lot of small businesses I talk to, right? So I'm trying to work with our partners at the SDO, and I sit on the advisory council now of how do we create a better education system and do targeted outreach, right? Because right now we do, for lack of a better analogy, a little bit of a shotgun outreach, and we're like, these things exist, and we just throw them out there, or they're on a website, and it's like, okay, but the intentionality of, is there a better way to build a system of education, working with BECMA, we are ALX, the MA LGBTQ chamber, and say, let's have an education series, or we come together and say, this is how you do it, and we can create training opportunities for our businesses to actually learn the process. And maybe there's a coaching aspect or a mentoring aspect for those who have done it, who that can then help those who don't, and so, yay! We're not there yet, or at least during my 6 months of now just getting on the advisory council, but you've probably already learned in the past 5 minutes, I'm not quiet. So I've already shouted it from the rooftops, and I'm gonna keep doing it because I think there are opportunities, and there will be more opportunities, right? As the governor and the team in the state of Massachusetts continue to want to lean into equity and raise those benchmarks, that's what we want, right? To help serve more small businesses and more opportunities in this space. So thank you, Susu, for bringing that up, because I got to go sit on a soapbox for a few seconds. So if you have ideas about that, right, we have to build the ecosystem together. We learn better together. The great Vincent Tinto once said that. And so how do we do that, right? By communicating with each other, resource sharing, and really talking through things and then advocating for things that we think will actually work. So if you have ideas, please contact us as board members, and then, the ED of our chamber, of ways in which we can then partner with Beckman, ALX, and all of those, as I continue to partner with their EDs on this work, we can help move the system forward and hopefully as quickly as possible. So I'll move on to the next question. Question number 3. What does a truly inclusive local business ecosystem look like to you, and how do you think we get there?
They're both looking at me. I guess I'm starting.
This is my one good eye, Susu, as you know, so I'm always looking left.
Before I go to that, I want to add about the certified business, right? So when we get a contract from the state, so we get a contract from them, we have to have diverse spend as well. So a percentage of our funding needs to go back. We're doing 3%. A lot of times they do 1%, but it's okay. But what I'm trying to say is that you can be a catering company, you can be a printer, you can be a painter, right? And if you get certified, we get to spend on those certified business as a way to be compliant. So even you getting certified, you don't really have to go for business and go out and try to find them, right? Other businesses may hire you. So that's just another benefit. So what does a inclusive business?
Inclusive local business ecosystem look like to you?
Ecosystem, right? Yeah.
I love the word ecosystem, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Ecosystem.
All right. Okay. What it means is that it's not just a seat on the table, right? Well, first of all, you gotta have someone open a door for you first and get into the room, right? But then having a seat on the table doesn't mean that you can collaborate, right? Somebody still controls your destiny and what you're going to do. I want to be the one that will kind of be the other person to help them to kind of strategize, to create roadmap for the businesses. And what I see is, where other immigrants, I'm an immigrant myself, I was from Hong Kong, having a business in the US, I worked at Wendy's 25 years ago, right? And so, having a business here and doing what we do, it's great because we want to give it back to the community. And having that inclusiveness is that we'll be able to help other entrepreneurs and to kind of open the door for them, have a seat at the table and work together. And I hope that businesses will see the value of equity. Right now we don't, but I have faith that we will because, I think one of these days we'll get back to where we are and probably better.
For me, a perfect state of mind for the business ecosystem locally should be one where businesses have access to entrepreneurial insights and tools, where there's knowledge sharing, and there's no so many obstacles to make that happen. And so for that, it will require again, if a person is thinking of becoming an entrepreneur because the journey as an employee has been over, then it's the state will be as easy as finding that information or building up that network that's gonna tell you this is an avenue that's available. Like you said, being that finding that person that will open the door for you. And we were talking with two of the audiences, guests today earlier, of how that it is and remains to be important. Because the journey, as it was mentioned, tends to be very isolated for business owners. So you are sometimes, that business become your 24/7. And it doesn't matter if there are resources there and how easy they are if you don't come out of that shelf to sort of get exposed and get to know what are the updates and what is the progress, what's new with your business. That's the way that you're gonna understand. So a very typical one, thinking as a lender right now, it's when I see particularly new businesses coming over to me and I see the projections, meaning what is the money they are gonna make and the expenses they are gonna have because of what they are planning to do. That is a very delicate dancing because if you are not aware of like what's expected for growth or for performance for your industry in the next 3 to 5 years, you probably might be having a sort of like a myopia on your plan, and you may not be helping yourself build your case with me when you come over. So the difference there, as opposed to just letting you sit with a no, this is wrong, I happen to, with my program, to connect you with other resources. Some of them were mentioned. So the Mass LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So the B program, it's a very good source for you to sit down and understand. Cambridge Local First, it's another way for you to understand how to connect here in Cambridge. Or it could be with, if you are Latino, with we are ALX, that's their name now. Or if you are from the Black and Brown community, that's BECMA. Or APEC, if you are from the Asian community. Or we have Interrise, or any other programs. And those that I mentioned, some of them are already collaborators to our Equity Alliance for Business program, but it's just showing you avenues there for you to get to the finish line, as opposed to just sit down with frustration.
No, absolutely. I would echo kind of everything they said, and Jose touched on it a little bit. That connectedness, that resource sharing, all of that. Now's also a really important time to come back in person to things and start meeting with people face to face, going to events, networking. Even being in the room today, you're probably meeting one person you didn't know before, or having a conversation with somebody you did about potentially a new idea, somewhere to go, asking the right questions in order to be led kind of in a direction that's useful and helpful to you. So when people are asking me like, oh, how do I meet these people? Yes, I can warm connect you to a banker, if a small business calls me, but I'm also saying, are you being intentional about where you're going and the people that you're meeting, or at least to the best of your ability, and asking where should I go to meet somebody in this field or this industry, or is there somebody that you can connect me with? Those are really important to leverage as well right now. And I think, we're question time?
Yeah, question time.
All right, we're question time. Yes.
Hi, my name is Michael Robles. I am a small business liaison with Unions for Main Streets. For the last 4 years, going on my 5th now, I've provided one-on-one technical assistance to small businesses. We serve nearly 200. The majority are immigrant-owned, LGBT-owned, English as a second language owned. And that's kind of what's created our neighborhood. We were voted 38th best neighborhood in the world. I don't know how, but we are.
Just own it and run with it and throw glitter every time you say it.
Exactly. And a lot of the work that I do with small businesses, it ranges from business development, lease negotiations, scam and fraud prevention, but the biggest ask is access to capital. And I'm curious to know, in the eyes, marketing, a banker, education, how can a business strengthen their profile in your eyes, other than just financial projections with assumptions, a business plan? What else can these, because they're not getting accepted, especially the restaurant industry, a startup, anyone that's just trying to get their foot in the door doesn't have equitable access to these resources, right? They don't have the history. What can they do other than just what you mentioned already to improve that?
So I would say, like, for example, there are programs. So there's one, Entrepreneurship for All, E for All. That's one for very early stages, where you are paired with a mentor for 12 weeks, and you can learn all this terminology without having to pay a penny for it, and with the option to get seeding capital at the end of the program. You have Amplify Latinx, for example, for those of your folks who speak Spanish, and Amplify Latinx provides at known cost advisory as well. You have BECMA. BECMA has the program, and with BECMA happens something very interesting. You are, you are sitting down and you are assessing your needs, and it could be that you could get the technical assistant. And I know they have a component that's like a grant, and I think that's like closer to $2,500, where you get to invest that in a particular area where you might need support, most likely marketing, for example. And so these are just like resources that are out there that will help you prepare. You can also do another thing, and it's like, and I think it was also one of the takeaways for the previous panel. You can get closer to a banker with no commitment. At least you can do that with me, and ask those questions. And we bankers, we know 1,000,001 people in organizations around, and we could be that bridge connecting you to that opportunity. In that way, you don't have to spend a penny. What you will have to spend is your commitment, your time commitment, and your commitment to your business. And I know it's tough because you have to be running a business and you have to be running life. That's in front of you. But again, your business will require that perseverance and that sacrifice from you.
You have a follow-up question for Jose? Please.
Jose, will there ever come a time when, like you guys mentioned today, government contracts, even the government contracts take 90 days to get paid, right? And that's not to mention the other business we're doing, like private sector, who may not have paid, right? So will we ever give any special considerations to the smaller businesses and meet them where they are? For example, when Swift has survived since before COVID, their credit scores might have dropped for obvious reasons, but they've been consistent on making those payments. And on top of that, they're paying 35%, which is like SWAT, highway robbery, right? Do you take that into consideration? Do you say, oh, this business's portfolio is the very fact that they've survived, and a lot of the times their credit score drops not because they're late, like not because because of the high balances, not because they don't pay. So are we ever going to put that in a separate category? Like, are we ever going to evaluate that, like unlayer that part?
I can take the first part, right? So the way you can,
One last thing.
oh,
Saying, can we put our cars down for guarantees? If we're trying to create wealth, right? We want them to buy houses. Let them put the car as a guarantee. That's it. Sorry.
the first part, and you can take the rest. So the way to get around that 90-day payment term is to offer the state incentives. It's called prompt payment discount, prompt discount payment, PPT, yeah. We offer the state 5%, which is really lucrative, Some of the vendors will go like, oh, if you pay within 10 days, it will be 5%, 4, 3, like that, right? Across the board, 30 days, we'll give them 5%. And the government loves it. They want to get the best deal, right? And the way you do it is like, you consider that 5%, and don't tell anyone, you consider that 5% in your overall budget, so you're going to get the money back, right? Okay, and you take the others.
I will add from a lending perspective. So we are open, and we always try to be creative in the way that we structure and underwrite a loan. And so, for example, when we have those cases of government contracts, so we definitely can take a look and work on a line of credit. But here's my ask, and again, I go back to your 50%. I will need you to show me your projections, and your projections will tell me, because I will understand where you are coming from with the historical that are not meeting ends. But then your projections will be my way to satisfy my risk mitigation part. So I will need you to be very, super, hyper, extra good at laying down your business plan and your projections, your profit and loss, telling me how much you're gonna make by the end of this year, next year, and the following year. And the reason why I mentioned 3 years, because one of those creative ways that we can structure a loan for you is with SBA guarantee to help you there. The Equity Alliance for Business program, one of the flexibility that brings out is for credit score requirements, we lower the threshold, and as opposed to a normal like 680, we can go as low as 640. And if you are not at 640, then we have those resources like Nextar Community Investments or Ascendus, that are two of the CDFIs that are working with us in the program, who can provide lending in the meantime. Or if you have been already working with them, guess what? If what you are needing is up to 100,000, I can discount or waive the credit score requirement as part of the process. And so that's a way in there. And I would say, again, it's your character. It's like if you are having this situation and this opportunity showing up, it's understanding how we're gonna step out of the credit card game, because we know we think they tend to save our lives. They do, as long as you pay that back in 30 days. When you are thinking more than 30 days, that's when you are giving yourself a little palm in the back. That's gonna probably knock you out. And so that's what's not good in there.
Second half, if people companies only do not list one list during COVID, are those projections the same for those companies?
So are you saying like if the company was like put on a restricted appetite?
The industries, the secret list that was put on the industry list, like the not lend list during COVID. Am I the only one that knows about it?
So it depends. So that's part. I will say your best answer for that is not a secret list. It's definitely like every bank has an appetite. So it was very nicely said before. You need to approach your bank and find out, what is your experience with my industry, to understand if you are banking with the right partner. Because if you are if you are going to a bank that's not interested in what you're doing, you know that the door will be like more than closed. But there are other institutions, and so that's a very good question for you guys to ask when you are exploring to whom you are giving your money as part of a relationship. So.
Last question, yes, that's what I was checking.
Okay. So I was, you guys said, had any ideas on how we could, spread more awareness about like the programs and getting certification and being more inclusive to business. And I think it's being outside of business hours with like an ambassador. I consider myself an ambassador because I basically, if I come across a business owner that needs help, I give them like all my resources that I have used, like saying, okay, get registered with your city first, and then it streamlines the process with STO, so you don't have to do the whole application, and then on a federal level, if you want to do federal contracts, if you can't afford the Center Women Enterprise fee of $350, go straight to the SBA and try to get certified that way. But if you want to do more on the corporate side and you want to be known as a woman owned, minority, LGBTQ business, just go through them, and then you'll be certified both with the SBA and on the corporate side of purchasing. So I'm trying to like express this, but you have to understand with business owners, a lot of times you don't have time to go to these clinics. I just became a member of that. I just put in my application for the women in business thing that I wanted to do that. And I also want to do the supplier program where you guys have to adhere that. But I'm just saying a lot of business owners,
No, I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something that I already wrote down that I'm going to take back to my next advisory meeting, because maybe there's an opportunity for the SDO to try and work with organizations like ours, you know, because we do the LGBTQ own certifications, but then we're also a funnel to the national one, you know, and then, you know, paying for that. And so I like that. Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. I'm going to take it back, and then I think there's an opportunity in other avenues as well for people to say, how do we then, again, create that opportunity to educate each other, you know, and get the right people on board, get them educated, and then help them share that out through webinars, through our own organizations and chambers, BECMA, we are ALX, you know, and find the people who have been able to learn the system who can then more easily educate others on how to actually complete that as well. So thank you so much. We are right on time. The three of us will be around, but I'm going to hand it back over.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex, for moderating. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you, everybody, as a matter of fact. That was wildly entertaining.